All right, everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And today, I want to talk about if we're getting another capital ship, like a GL capital ship, and why I think that it could potentially be further away than you think. So we're going to get right into this, but first and foremost, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you guys. And, I want to give a just quick kind of address something that I saw as a comment in my prior video, where I talked about Mark 1 raid currency, and I said that it can be used to get signal data. And yes, I understand it's not direct and people were saying it's clickbait. I think if you're calling it clickbait, you didn't understand the concept of it. The idea isn't that, yes, you can't buy signal data with Mark 1 raid currency, but you can buy characters that you would need to use Cantina energy for, which means that's more energy that you can use for signal data. So it's not a like for like trade, but it's about sacrificing one thing so that way you can use it for something else. So I just wanted to address that. I feel like a lot of people missed that point. So want to make sure I address that here. Channel members, I'm going to share something really funny with you all. This is actually a meme from Andrew Bradshaw talking about the title card. And I thought this was hilarious. Like, this is just such a funny thing. Like, I really love this meme. Andrew, shout out, man. I had to share this with everybody because this is just hilarious. Like, this is so good. So very true. I love you guys. And everybody's like, Phil, it's okay. Like, as long as you're putting content out. So I appreciate you all very, very much. But let's talk about these capital ships and kind of when we're getting the next Galactic Legend capital ship. So let's start here with the Executor. And we're going to go through the announcement date and then the release date. So it was July 21 that the Executor was released. Or it was announced, and it was released in August of 2021. So a very short turnaround there between, and this was like middle of August, and I think this was early July, so about a month and a half in between them. So realistically, a very short turnaround, right? Not a lot of time in between those two things. Then when you look at the Profundity, it was announced in July of 22 and not released until September of 2021. So a little bit more of a, I think a little bit more time in between those release dates, right? I feel like there was a little bit more time in between that. But the big thing to note there is that the release of August of 2021 and September of 2022. So Executor was the meta for about a year. And that's an important thing to note, is that Executor was meta for about a year. Then you come to the Profundity, and we go down to Leviathan, where it was announced in April of 2023 and released in July of 2023, which meant that in September, right, that the Profundity was meta for a much shorter time period than Executor was, right? And I think that the reasoning for that is because the Profundity is definitely the best of the capital ships at low stars. That at low stars, that ship is clearly superior to Executor and Profundity, both in the mirror match and outside of it, just in my humble opinion. But the other thing here as well was that I think the Profundity was the one capital ship that we did the least amount of extra relics to, right? Like, you started with Outrider, Y-Wing, and the Millennium Falcon. Beyond that, most people were not really investing into their Phoenix teams, those other ships for reinforcements. Like, it just wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a priority for a lot of us. Whereas with Executor, a lot of people were putting extra relic levels on, their Houndstooth, Razor Crest, Cad Bane. Like, a lot of players did that. A lot of people were investing in that fleet to make it better and better. Whereas with Profundity, that wasn't the case. And with Leviathan, it's the exact same story, where a lot of players are investing in Sith Assassin, Darth Malgus, trying to boost those relics up because it makes such a massive difference in that mirror match, right? Like, when you look here just at my, fleet here. So, fleet chart here, look. Ultra Beast Bane, Relic 8, Sith Assassin. And I'm just going to go through people I know, like, by memory at this point. But, Millennial Falcon, Relic 8. Hassim Elok here, also Relic 8. Cotman, Relic 9. Jonathan, Relic 9. That's just the Sith Assassins. And then, like, this guy, whatever his name is, and I both have a Relic 6 Sith Assassin. And then I think Killjoy here is Relic 7. Ultras Killa and this guy here, both Relic 7. So a lot of us, the vast majority of us in this fleet shard, have invested more relic levels in Sith Assassin than she's required at. And to just back this up a little bit more, right, I'm going to flip over to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.gg to show you something. So this right here is the relic player data. And this is showing the most popular relic 9s, right? I have this filtered on relic 9 here. So Admiral Raddus takes the cake, which makes sense. He's a requirement for profundity. But then you look at Malik and Darth Revan with 50,000 each. So over 100,000 relic 9s for Leviathan already, which is insane. Then you look at the next group. The next guy is Jedi Master Luke, which again makes sense. Probably, him being the most popular galactic legend at relic 9. He is a tank, and he's been out for a very long time. Then Admiral Piet is next because, again, he's a relic 8 requirement, and that relic 9 on Executor did make a big difference in those mirror matches, right? The big difference between Leviathan at relic 9, or Leviathan mirror match, and the Executor mirror match is that going first with the capital ship makes a much bigger difference. Very similar to like Negotiator that way. When you look at then the next ones, you've got Leia Organa, which she's the first character on this list where there's more relic 9s than relic 8s. And that makes a lot of sense to me because the vast majority of players who have her are in that later to end game where relic 9 is a lot more accessible. But she's the first character on the list where there's more relic 9s than relic 8s, and she isn't a requirement, right? Because these guys are all required to be at relic 9. Then you look, between Leia all the way down here to Sith Eternal, it's all galactic legends that have the most relic 9s. Again, makes a lot of sense that your GLs are the most popular relic 9s. Then, look at the next two characters here. Darth Malgus and Sith Assassin. Both of them are starting pilots in that Leviathan lineup. Now, Darth Malgus, obviously a very good character, right? He's great outside of, in Grand Arena, outside of it, very important, but he's also a pilot, and a lot of people did take him to higher levels, justifying, hey, this is a really good character, and he's a very good pilot. But then for Sith Assassin, what I want you to notice, there's more relic 9s than relic 8s, right? That is jarring to me. There are more relic 9s than relic 8s. That tells you the way that this game has trended and the way that a lot of the player base sits is that the value of that two capital games, right? The way that they see this data is that the longer we keep Leviathan as the meta, the more players who will take their Sith Assassin to relic 8, to relic 9, because they're going to have to climb against other players who have it. Right? They know that. That was a big reason why I think the Profundity was kind of kicked out of that meta slot earlier, is because a lot of us were using a lower star Profundity, bringing in TIE Bomber and making that mirror match a joke. Where with the Leviathan, it's a lot harder to kind of joke this fleet around. It's a lot harder to cheese this mirror match because that Sith Assassin, that faster Sith Assassin makes such a big difference. So that to me is why I don't think we're going to be getting a new capital ship quite as soon as we think, because this fleet is such a cash cow, right? It really is. Like, there's no other fleet that I think has generated the kind of revenue that Leviathan has because of the relic levels, the characters required, but I also think because of the way the mirror match works, right? If this mirror match wasn't as big of a deal, right? If this mirror match was more similar to Profundity, I don't think as many players would do this, but because this mirror match is so heavily dependent on that faster Sith Assassin. I shouldn't say heavily dependent. It's a lot easier when you have the faster Sith Assassin. The other thing that I think makes me think that we're a little bit further from the next Galactic Legend ship than people realize is actually because a lot of us say, hey, Trench makes the most sense as the next GL ship. I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. And I know I just took mine to Relic 7. And I knew this going in, but I'll tell you why I think this makes the most sense isn't quite as accurate as we think. When you look at the Separatist fleet, you have 5 ships. You've got the Geonosian ships, Hyena Bomber, and Vulture Droid that all work perfectly with Malevolence. The Malevolence isn't just it's not like an Admiral Akbar or Executrix or the Mace Windu ship, right? Where this fleet is a guild event currency 2 ship. The only way to earn this ship is, there's a little bit through achievements, but primarily guild event currency 2 is the only way you can earn this ship. So are you really going to release another ship that takes the place of the Malevolence with these ships? Or are you going to take these ships, move them to Trench's ship? And now the Malevolence, this Get To ship, is no longer valuable. Now, for somebody at my level, that's probably not as big of a deal. But imagine that you just got your Malevolence to 7-star, and now there's a ship that's going to take all of these things away. What that's going to mean is a lot of players will stop working on the Malevolence, won't spend their Get 2 on it, because Trench's ship is going to be more important. So the side of me that's kind of nervous about this is that you would need to realistically probably release 5 new capital ships for Admiral Trench. Or you might not need to release as many new ships, but one of the requirements would probably have to be Malevolence, that they need to make the farming the Malevolence purposeful, or else it just doesn't make sense, right? And that's why I think we're further away, is that we need all this time to get all of these new ships into the game, potentially new pilots, and I think that could cause a lot of players some consternation. And so I think that the announcement or release of this next capital ship, if I had to make any guesses, guys, and I know you're going to hate me for this, but I'm telling you right now, that I think around the time that we're going to get Jar Jar, that we're going to get Queen Amidala, right, and get this new raid, is when the next capital ship will get announced. I think they're going to try and squeeze us as much as they can during that time, that, hey, here's all this stuff to do. Oh, new capital ship. And they're going to make us pick and choose what we need for it. That's just, again, one man's very humble opinion. And just to make, this make a little bit more sense, you think we've seen Count Dooku in a ship. We know that there's the droid gunship that they have, right, in some of the combat missions and territory battles. So there is that where they could put in characters like a B1 or B2 and stuff, right? They could also release the that droid attack ship. I forget what they call that thing. From Revenge of the Sith, right? That wasn't the bomber and the vulture droid. So there's there's 3 other Separatist ships right there that they could add into the game. Among, I'm sure, others, right? So, yeah, Asajj Ventress could get a ship. General Grievous could, I guess he has his fleet commander ship, so we couldn't have his crewed ship, so ignore that one. But, what if we got, Jango Fett's ship? That could be another, hey, we're going to get Jango Fett. So, I think that there is room for more Separatist ships. It just would be a longer time frame, because I don't think they could just spring 5 new ships on us in a very short time frame, because of how long it takes to get ships, ship credits, those materials. So, yeah. All that said, I think right now it's still safe to be investing in Leviathan, because it is the best PvP ship. And if they make a new light side ship, right, I'm just going to say that, the Leviathan is far better against light side ships, so they'd really have to make that ship. I don't see how we get a new capital ship soon without some major changes in a very short period of time, and I don't know that Capital Games is going to do that until I think this new raid. I could be wrong, could be very wrong on this, but I think we're further away than we think. So, me rushing Trench was, I wanted to use his Datacron. It wasn't just, I do think he will get a capital ship at some point, but I think more so I'm trying to prepare myself to get the Datacron. It was a hole I had in my roster. So, hopefully you guys enjoy this topic. Hopefully it gives you at ease a little bit. Because I think we're a long way away. I think we still have a lot of work to do before we're ready for the next capital ship. I could be wrong, though. So, if I'm wrong, you let me know in the comments. You guys come back and start shouting at me. So, I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.